And Rastafari love, blessed New Year's and blessed holidays to everybody out there. Hope everybody's doing well. This is Ras Jahsee from Line of Judah House of Rastafari. And I wanted to give another update today. It's January 1st. So according to the Western calendar, it's the New Year. In Ethiopia, if you don't know, they celebrate on September 11th. And it's no coincidence about September 11th if you can investigate yourself. But anyways, Happy New Year to everybody else. And I wanted to give everyone an update. So this case has been litigating now for almost 6 years. It's been like 5 3/4 years almost. So for the large part of this time, I've been litigating myself with no attorney. And so imagine somebody litigating themselves for 5.5 or for 5 years or 4 years. I had an attorney in the beginning, but that guy, he sold me out, and he did some things he shouldn't have done in court. I had to fire him on the spot. So then I proceeded to defend myself. Imagine, for almost 3.5 years or so, and so this case has really been going for a long time. They haven't been bringing me to any trial, and the court is using that as a pretext to blame me. So they've recently, after all of this time, I decided I'm going to get an attorney because they're forcing me to trial. And they told my attorney that she's not going to let him file any motions. Can you imagine having an attorney and then he can't file any motions? So now they're trying to send me into a trial, and under the pretext that in Wisconsin doesn't honor any cannabis exemptions, that Wisconsin doesn't honor any church use of cannabis, constitutional use. And here in Wisconsin, they say they only deal by blood. So they give it to one race according to their Supreme Court rulings that they're trying to uphold. And they're saying it only is for people of blood. So we'll give it to these race, but we're not going to give it to any other race. So they've turned this thing into a race issue where they have preference towards one race. Specifically, they're relying on old cases from that predate what's established, what's called in law as the 4-pronged strict scrutiny test that determines a lot of things, but specifically regarding religious matters. The supremacy clause of the 6th Amendment kicks in here because there's federal case rulings that were established by other people already before me. There was a case established with the Native American Church and others, not only for cannabis use, but other Schedule 1 controlled substances and plants. But the long story short of it is, they had already previously defended a man that was part of the Native American Church, and the state wanted to say, no, you can't have any sacrament that the Native Americans have. You're not blood born. We only give it to those genetically blood-born people, only they. So he's like, no, I'm blessed with them, and we have a sacrament together, and they commune together. And so he went to court, and the court determined that he was sincere and that he was being burdened. And so they established a 4-pronged test, which is if you're sincere, number 1, if you have a burden on you, number 2, on your religious practice. So if you have those 2 qualifications, then the burden now shifts, and the state has to prove 2 things, both. Number 1, that they have a compelling government interest to interfere with your religious practice. And then if they do have some compelling argument to make for having an interest, then they have to go about regulating you, or regulating your activities, or interfering with your activities in the least restrictive means possible. So they're relying on some cases that say in Wisconsin there's a 100% prohibition on cannabis use according to constitutional use, meaning whether it's your religion or whether it's according to your own free conscience, your own free mind. If you can use it in a way that's good and not intoxicating and hurting you, you have a right. But Wisconsin says no, the only people who have those rights are blood-born Native Americans. And so, despite that old racist case law has been overturned on a federal level, and the state applies the supremacy clause of the Sixth Amendment, which means they apply that case law as law for Wisconsin, and they give other people on other religious issues, they give them all 4 prongs of the 4-prong strict scrutiny test. But what's happening here is the state is saying, no, Jesse, you do qualify on the one, you're sincere. We concede, we even endorsed all of your paperwork ourselves to do every single thing with cannabis. We endorsed you already in 2018, and I have a big endorsement paper right here from the state. If no one's ever seen it, this is what it looks like. Endorsement. From who? The state of Wisconsin. So what are they even endorsing, you might wonder? Well, they're endorsing Lion of Judah, House of Rastafari, you see, and then you'll find we have a mission statement which they endorsed, you see? We have a mission statement which they endorsed. And this mission statement you can find on our website, on Facebook, Lion of Judah House of Rastafari, if you want to get a quick, easy read of it. But it actually continues on to this page, you see? And here's another one. You see, so if you take a screenshot, go ahead, or whatever, or go check it out on our page. But this basically, they endorsed all of our activities with a church to have cannabis here being exempt. You see, in the same way that it should be, because there's a separation of church and state in this life. For people that have freedom in this country, they know that there's a separation of church and state, and you can't make your politics against or for one religious group or another. No, and you can't do it for against or for one race or another. That's not Rastafari, and that's not how we operate as good operating people in Wisconsin. And that's not how we operate in the United States of America and our land. We actually have respect for other people's religion. We have respect for their rights. And we respect the Constitution, because we believe that we're a great country based on the founding of legitimate ethics and laws that maybe have not always been followed by government or politicians and even people in the community. But in short, we believe in the goodness of our country and our laws, even our state, and we also believe that there's a separation of church and state. I believe everybody in this country can appreciate that. So, despite the fact that there's a separation, I gave them this filing to let them know the Rastafari community exists. And this was after almost, I'll say, 20 years, or 15, 16, 18, almost 20 years of personal work that no one else was doing. Me traveling around using my time and my money to go spend my life going to investigate issues that may or should be important to a lot of us, including you. Like, for instance, the origin of our faiths, the origin of humanities, the origin of science, the origin of different people and tribes, the origin of languages. Those things brought me into distant lands, and I've met many people. But some of the best people I've met have guided me in a way since I was young, since I was around, when I first started learning, around 18, 19, around the year 2000, around the year even 1998, 99, 2000. That's when I started to investigate myself more about deep questions of life. So I've traveled myself personally. I've got brothers and sisters on many continents that have helped me to come put this church to work in a real, meaningful way that helps people. And so it's to be acknowledged, not just Jesse, but all the other people behind me that helped make this happen. Of my 15 or 20 trips to Jamaica, and all the brothers and sisters over there that have given I the guidance and the support. Particularly, I'll shout out to my brethren Avalanche. Yep, and in Kenya, same way. Lion of Judah House of Rastafari in Kenya. Also, we have a branch. Shout out to the big brethren King Chris. Anytime you're in Kakamega. And worldwide, Uganda, we have a branch filed in Uganda. Yup, shout out to all the brethren out there. Ras Kaya, one more, Raf. Yup, and all the others that I can say along the way that have been a blessing that I didn't even name. But time is short, it's good. So, as we keep moving forward, I want to tell you now how we've come to this point. So, here we are, they're trying to force me into a trial, and they're trying to say, in Wisconsin, I don't have a right even to represent myself in a way, even though they endorsed me already and said I have every right. Endorsed. Do you know even what the word endorsement means? It means we promote, we support, we advocate, we're for you. Whatever you're talking about in your paperwork right here, we're for you. We're for that. So you see my paperwork? My paperwork tells you everything about being a legitimate church. It tells you all the ways that we saw other people operating in a secular way in Wisconsin, where they would operate secular businesses and they would sell cannabis, THC, Delta 9 THC. They would be exempt, and they would have means of even selling to the public. And there's even other churches in Wisconsin, for instance, Sacred Warrior, Church of Native America, with another brethren, Brad, and there's other ones across the country, which we have Green Faith Ministries with Brandon Baker. We have Sugar Leaf with Heidi Grossman. And there's many other ones. This isn't the only one. This is something that is established called Lion of Judah House of Rastafari. It comes from my personal experience with all the different Rasta brothers around that have made this happen for us, because we saw that there was a need that within Rastafari, the community, I'll say, it's been something that has never really been so organized. It's more been something that has been put specifically, intentionally unorganized in terms of mixing with the state. It's always been like separation. We don't mix with the state, you see? So it's officially, according to the state, unorganized. But there's organization and there's order within our faith. But we specifically have a free church. We don't have to be under the state's thumb, just like any other church. You can't go and take wine from the Catholics and other Christians when there's the Prohibition era. They didn't do that. They don't come and test sacrament from Native Americans. They don't come and do that for their church and other churches. You can look it up. So these people came and crossed the line. They first came and insulted us and said that we're not legitimate, and they made news stories about us. You can look back and see on our page on YouTube a lot of those things I saved and recorded and put down there for whatever news stories they made. So now it's come to this point where they're trying to push us into a trial, push me into a trial, giving me an exposure time of maybe 2 felony counts. There was originally like 6 or 7, and they dropped those ones. But now there's 2 felonies, and giving me an exposure time of maybe at least 20 years or more, or 30, if they want to convict me of something. So I have a family. Yep, I have a nice family. I've got 3 children. I've got a wife in Kenya, and currently, hopefully, in the near future, we're all going to be living peacefully together. But these people are trying to destroy my family, destroy my life, and destroy the respect of people in Wisconsin that think that they have to know that we have a right to have separation of church and state and have free exercise of our own religion and conscious mind. And that goes for anybody in this country, in this state. It doesn't matter what religion you are. Everyone can relate to these issues. And the issue here is that the state is playing a real wicked game, whereby they think the people in Wisconsin are really foolish to think that they're going to give privileges to businesses and secular companies to have exemptions for THC and Delta 9 THC specifically, and cannabis specifically. They're giving exemptions for secular businesses. It's in every grocery store, it's in every gas station here now, and it's on 2 or 3 stores on every street. You'll find these same things even being marketed as such openly. And so if a secular business can do this and sell it to the public, why am I being prevented from having a private church where we use cannabis for religious use, not for sales, not to be intoxicated with? We use it for religious use, spiritually, the same way you see other people doing. It's no secret that the Rastafari community uses it that way. Maybe it's because someone doesn't want me representing Rastafari community. Is that it? Well, don't hate the messenger, because it's upon you. So we're here for a good thing, for peace, defending all people's rights, defending the basic genuine right for a man to have it, freedom of his own conscience, to do what he wishes or she wishes, so long as you're not harming other people and harming their property and causing them damage. Nobody has come forward and said we've harmed them. It's only a fictitious character called the state of Wisconsin who's upset. So maybe what they're really upset about is the fact that they don't want people in Wisconsin to realize that the state of Wisconsin can't tax cannabis because it's already constitutionally lawful for people here. According to the Constitution, free exercise, it's lawful. So maybe the problem is they want tax money, and they don't like the fact that churches are separate from the state, and that doesn't give them a tax claim. Is that it? Maybe that's it. Well, that's them who are also part of those same laws that write them and that are founded on our Constitution. So you shouldn't be upset about that. Does anybody want the government taking more of your money? For what? Hey, let me just leave that. So here we are. Basically now I've got a judge on my case, Judge Ellen Burrs, who has been recently referred to the Judicial Ethics Commission or Committee for violations that she is unethical and basically not using good discretion and basically not doing a good job as a judge by not being fair with people. She's the same one that's not dismissing my case, despite the fact that me and the state don't have a disagreement on the basic facts and the motion that I filed, and it's only Judge Ellen Burrs that's refusing. So she knows that all of these factors, and let me tell you, this same lady years ago was also a judge in a different case over me. I've got no felonies. I'm 44. I'm not a felonious person. But some time back, there was a case that I was involved in with my own son, who ran away to my own house because of abuse that was happening at the other location where he was staying. And from that led to charges of almost parental kidnapping against me for keeping my son on some days that somebody felt like he should be over at this place on that day, even despite reports of abuse happening. So for 2 years, I have to fight a case with this same Ellen Burrs, who's already now being publicly admonished by people. Did you know that she actually told the bailiff to go arrest somebody in the hospital because he couldn't show up for court in the hospital? And when the bailiff told her, I can't even do such a thing. I'm here to protect the courtroom, judge. Don't you know? So she got up off the bench and left the court, got in the car with the man's attorney, and drove to the hospital almost to go plan what she said she was going to arrest him herself, and made some threats that if anything happened to her, they would see it on the news. Well, we're seeing it on the news. We're seeing what you're doing. It's all over the news, Ellen Burrs. You're not doing good. And I remember the time, what you did to me some years back when you were on my case, and you gave me a $60,000 bond and sent me to jail for 2 months or more, and even into Mendota mental institution, because I told you I didn't understand why you were charging me when my son ran away to my house after abuse happened. So after 2 years, do you know what they did? They dropped those abuse charges against me. After what? After my son went to the hospital. After he went into the hospital because of the same abuse that was happening that I was reporting, he ended up having to go to the hospital late at night around midnight because of abuse that was happening to him. You see? And then they want to drop the charges against me now after 2 years. $60,000 bond for keeping my own son. And then put me in Mendota 2 times. Once for 2 or 3 days, the next time for 2 weeks. And then they wanted to tell me, she told me that she would have me drugged with psychotropic drugs if I didn't cooperate. She told me she could make an order to drug me against my own will, hold me down and drug me with psychotropics if I didn't cooperate about her competency evaluation that she wanted. And they sent me there the first time, and they said, I told them my story. I'm a Rasta man. This is my life story. This is what I'm trying to do, is make this church. This is a few years before I actually filed the paperwork that they endorsed. So at that time, I was telling people about it, my plans, and I told the people in Mendota about it, and somebody diagnosed me with, guess what, of all things, cannabis use disorder. Have you even ever heard of cannabis use disorder? Well, I never heard of it, and I definitely didn't have it, because this is my identity. So when I went back to court, they told the judge I've got cannabis use disorder and this and that. So I said no. I ended up telling them I don't understand still. Why is this happening? Because my son ran away to my house after abuse was happening. You're charging me, holding me on $60,000 bond? My own son? Okay. Now she's telling me, well, it looks like you have cannabis use disorder. So now that's a pretext to say you have some mental illness so I can drug you with psychotropics. And I'm going to make that order if you don't follow what I'm telling you to do. Threaten me with drugs. I went back to Mendota a second time now for 2 weeks after waiting in jail for a month or a month and a half because they didn't even have openings at Mendota. So she wanted me to sit in Dane County jail for a month and a half before I even went there. In any case, I went back there and I told those people, you all made a big mistake. This is not any disorder or any disease or diagnosis that you can say people that use cannabis for religious use or have some disorder according to your psychology. No, that's not me. You're not going to brand me with any problem or any disorder. I don't have any disorder. I have, in fact, I have a lot of order, but we're not of their order. You see? That's the thing. So eventually those people with much speaking and liability on them actually went back and changed the report and said, "Oh, we made an error. It wasn't really cannabis use disorder after all. That was a misjudgment on our part. He doesn't have that. No, it's actually part of his identity, part of his belief system. It's part of who he is. There's nothing that can change that. He uses cannabis as part of his belief system as a religious use, and there's nothing like it's part of him. It's his identity." So I went back into court then. That paperwork exists. If anyone needs to see it, from Mendota. All these experiences helped make me who I am. The same judge is sitting on my case today trying to judge me. The same one who was willing to drug me with psychotropics over cannabis use for religious reasons at that time, trying to tell me I had a disorder so she would drug me. The same judge that took my own freedom away for protecting my son from an abusive situation that was later determined and found out about after I was arrested and faced problems with them for 2 years almost, after his visit to the hospital at midnight. The same judge, no discretion, no judgment, chasing people out of the courtroom like a rogue vigilante to go try to have them arrested at hospitals. This is the person that's going to sit on my case. Let me officially say this is my statement. This is my statement. Even published this one for the Judicial Review Commission as my complaint. This person is wicked, and you can look up all her works. Did I already tell you about Chris Taylor, the one that they appointed and put on my case? That's before Judge Burrs. This has been going on 5.5 years. So Chris Taylor was also on my case. She's the one, her name is on the Wisconsin state-sponsored restrictive cannabis bill. Her name, she's a co-sponsor for someone that supports state-regulated, not constitutional use, not separation of church and state. She's on the regulation of church and state side. They put her on my case first before Judge Ellen Burrs. These are the type of wicked things that have been happening that have a clear conflict of interest for these individuals and have distorted my case and made it extremely to the point where I have a loss of due process and fairness to even proceed to a trial. To make me proceed to a trial where I can't tell people about my own identity and my own church in the last 25 years of my travels to meet different brethren of all faiths in different continents, specifically Rastafari brethren and sisters that have helped us to establish this. And now I'm being threatened with contempt charges if I even speak about anything. Is that it? Okay, so this is going to be part of that speech then that we're going to publish, because people are definitely going to hear about this story. So as it is, other churches this has already been ruled on. The state has no interest to even test sacrament. They have no compelling interest. They can't even test a church's sacrament. They can't test peyote. They couldn't test wine. And they can't test cannabis for other established cannabis churches and communities in this country. Specifically, ONAC, the Native American Church, and even Heidi Grossman and Brandon Baker. These are to name 3 others. So Bradley Burt with Wisconsin also has a church here, as I mentioned, Sacred Warrior Church of Native America. And so they can't even test church sacrament. So let's say they break all precedent and somebody wants to argue, oh well, we have a right to at least test your sacrament. For what? You already endorsed everything with the cannabis plant and THC. You endorsed it all right here. What is there to test? There's nothing for you to find out that's significant. It's only that they want to try to make an example out of me, and they want to try to make this about something that's very disrespectful to the Rastafari community, who they know is primarily represented as a black minority African community, and they don't want anybody of that community or standing to have the same rights as what they've given to Native Americans in this country, or other special people who they want to give rights to. So if you do know, Rastafari is for all people. And the man called Ras Jahsee, who is also known as Haile Selassie I, the king of Israel in the early 1900s, the king of Ethiopia, king of Israel, documented by Newsweek, Time Magazine, National Geographic, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and Chicago Tribune, Jerusalem Post, New York Times, every major, every minor, every president and king for 40 years witnessed this man, Rastafari, sit on the ancient throne of a biblical name, King David, the king of Judah, king of Israel, King David's throne. So this man personally went around the world to help stop colonialism in Africa, and single-handedly, almost through his diplomacy, was able to defeat colonialism in Africa by helping advocate for each individual African state to get independence from the colonial systems they had, which led to basically the uncolonization of Africa, which ended almost recently when South Africa got some degree of freedom, and now Israel is the last place that has part of Africa maybe that has that colonial rule, because Israel is part of Africa. Look on the map. You can fly from Egypt or Kenya or Ethiopia to Israel in less than an hour. It's all part of the same piece. It's connected to Africa. That's part of the whole biblical story coming out of Egypt. The reason that the Christ's family went into Egypt in those days. So the more you look into these things, you'll find these issues aren't just affecting me. They're affecting other people like you and common people here that just are ordinary people that have rights. So this thing has been very important for me. I've put in a lot of my life to try to make it so that not just myself, but other people could be equally respected. Other communities that were disenfranchised and that have less historical power and rights under the law to be themselves. That's part of the reason why my life has led even to this point, to help defend all of those people. So when we saw people like Allen Robinson, another African, if you want to call yourself American, Black American, whatever you call yourself, member of the community, standing outside with the police on the day that we were raided, cheering, to see those type of a shame of people to be out there not even having any conscious awareness of what we're representing, even defending their own rights. And here we find them cheering on the day that we're being raided and arrested. So in any case, there's other names to drop. You'll find out. That's all in the reports. But these people here, let me just give you a short, quick one before I wrap this up, because we're at around 34 minutes right now. But aside from the religious exemption, aside from having a religious exemption, for the first time in Wisconsin's history, they just changed the jury instructions to now include a clause that mentions exemptions for cannabis THC. You see? So now, for the first time ever in the history of Wisconsin, now they're mentioning that there's exemptions for cannabis and THC in the jury instruction. This happened after this same Ellen Burrs tried to suggest to the jury through pre-questioning that didn't make it to them, thankfully, but she was going to intend to project to the jury as if Wisconsin didn't currently have legal THC, and she wanted to know how they felt about that, as if it didn't already exist. So I told her it does exist, and for you to propose any other ideology to them other than the fact that telling them straight out it exists already, that people are using this here for secular use, there's an exemption for businesses and churches. So they ended up, after a public rebuking that you can find on my case, which was a filing in the last few months, probably entitled something about ex parte contact with the judge, case number 19CF1228 here in Wisconsin. You need to check it out. In any case, here we are. They're trying to force me into a trial, and there's a couple points that I wanted to also make aside from the religious freedom argument, because that's not the only argument here. There's also a number of other factors that you have to see if you understand what's going on. So I wrote them down briefly. I'm going to just try to read through them the best I can. It's short, and if you can catch it, it's pretty organized, and you might be able to see what's happening here in Wisconsin as I update you to the minute, even to the final updated jury instructions that have never been used on anybody else in Wisconsin for a trial before, where an acknowledgement has been made that there's exemptions. So why don't we have an exemption too? Why? It's because the state wants to trespass. So basically here, the state has no right to test our sacrament. As I already mentioned, as a church, we're legitimate, we're endorsed, we're recognized. They know better. There's negative consequences that happen when the state breaks that. Now, there's questionable application of THC statutes and laws. There's questionable test results. There's questionable testing methods, and it puts me in a questionable position as well, as if I don't need to be in a questionable position. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm doing what's endorsed already, and I'm operating lawfully just like other people here are. And so I was definitely endorsed. I was in good standing. They never revoked my good standing at any point. I was never revoked. I was witnessing secular businesses and other churches administrating their businesses and be exempt from federal hemp bill and the Wisconsin hemp bill and the pilot program in Wisconsin. Cannabis sativa L, by the way, THC, Delta 9, THC, THCA, and hemp, all forms of THC, are much, some of them even stronger than Delta 9 THC. There's exemptions for, or they just haven't even, they don't even govern it in hemp. There's other types of THC that's even stronger than Delta 9 THC, and it's not even regulated. Furthermore, I also had a COA, a certificate of analysis, for at least some of my products to show that I actually was trying to at least follow the same path other people were at the time, which was to have those products and have them legitimate. So one of my products that I definitely have a COA for, that the court has record of, it says it's hemp right on it. It's a cannabis hemp. And I also had high THCA hemp that is also exempt. And what else is it also has Delta 9 THC, which is exempt according to the hemp exemption and the hemp cannabis. So some of the things that happened are they heated up. They used a heating test to test my sacrament at the time, and that particular test, Attorney General Josh Call has already said Wisconsin doesn't even have tests that can test cannabis. So they used some test that was made for cocaine and heroin testing on my sacrament. And then they tried to come up with an idea that I had something that I didn't. So basically, if you don't know this already, THCA means acid. That is the THC that's found in cannabis and hemp plants, primarily. When you heat that one up, well, guess what? It turns into delta-9 THC, something that they want to regulate. They don't regulate it for churches, but they regulate it for secular businesses, and they want to regulate me. So after they heated it up using their testing methods and converted it into delta-9 THC, then it didn't even tell them that they had delta-9 THC. It just told them that they had THC. And THC is not illegal in Wisconsin. It's not even a Schedule 1 controlled substance. It's hemp. So it's in any case, there's plenty of hemp businesses around here. I'm sure you've seen them, cannabis hemp businesses. And so they heated up my sacrament and converted it into something that is illegal in their eyes and a controlled substance in their eyes, whereas it wasn't before. If you research that, you'll find cannabis plants have THCA, and that's not illegal or unlawful. It's part of the hemp plant or the cannabis plant. It's only when you heat it up. So as I possessed anything, it wasn't even against the law. It was just the same way other people are possessing. And do you know what else causes it to convert into delta-9 THC, something they want to regulate? Time. It's been 5.5 years now, and basically the state conceded that their early test results were not useful to use at a trial, so they had to send it out to Pennsylvania to have tested again 5.5 years later, after it's degraded and changed chemically. It changes. Did you know that according to the government website, THCA changes into delta-9 THC not only by heat, but by the process of time, and even through maturity. So what they were supposed to have is some test that showed that this maybe at an early stage of its life, around 1 month before harvest, according to their laws, that it would be over some level that they would have an interest in regulating. But after that early stage testing, there's nothing that regulates cannabis or hemp here in Wisconsin or even federally. That's why they're currently trying to change in Congress and such like that they're trying to actually change that. But that's not how it is now, which proof is in the pudding. That's why they're trying to change it to be that way. So aside from those issues, what else can I tell you about this? The state, it also has to come from a cannabis sativa L plant. Have you heard of sativa versus indica? Well, the law is written in such that their governance and their restrictions in their law about cannabis and hemp only applies to cannabis sativa L. It doesn't even apply to indica. Indica, like Hindu Kush and other types of indica. I'm sure you've heard of indica. So, in any case, that's another problem that they have. They don't have any evidence of what type of plant it even was, whether it was a sativa L or an indica. They're using tests that are 5.5 years old that have degraded and changed chemically into substances that they can now use under the guise that, oh, now it looks this way. Any lab tech that has any credibility at all will tell you, using a test that converts something into a different compound, or using a test that through time has been so old the product is degraded, it has no useful implementation into a criminal case or to determine what it was 5.5 years prior. Any lab tech that has any credibility will tell you that's not even able to be used in any credible way. Furthermore, they've only tested like 639 grams of cannabis, and they're charging me with having like 1,000 or 2,500. Their test, even though 639 grams, that's how much they put on their testing report, but they actually only tested like a few grams of the 639. So they're trying to just justify things any way they can, but they don't have any reason. It doesn't make much sense. I was operating very openly. I had a church bank account. There was no money that was being spent. We were not making withdrawals and spending on anything really that I can remember, other than maybe some things for the church that would cost few hundreds of dollars, you know. So EIN number for business. Everybody, the IRS does not bother me. I file taxes every year. I report about my church, that this is who I'm working for. The IRS is not giving me a problem. The federal government, they know, according to federal law, there's exemptions for churches. The federal government is not charging me. This is the state. Jennifer Zilleve, city attorney, the one that was originally speaking poorly about us on the news, claiming that we're an illegitimate church, that we're basically a drug house posing as a church. Here we are. All this time later, you're going to see. Aside from these issues here, you know, for me they have to also show that somebody thought that they did something wrong. You know, there's no way anybody could think that they did something wrong when they're doing the same thing everybody else has. Everybody's openly advertising having THC. Everybody knows THCA is what is in the cannabis plant, and not until it heats up that it turns into Delta-9 THC. If I'm endorsed by the state and they give me an endorsement and say, yes, do all of those things you told us you're going to do, then you can't come back later and arrest me and tell me I did something wrong. You already endorsed everything. So there is no compelling government interest. The least restrictive means has been met. They gave up and they said, we're not restricting you. You see? So now, here we are all this time later, and the state feels a lot of liability. And that's why they don't want to drop this case. So you can read about my mission statement if you want to check it out. It's on Line of Judah House of Rastafari on our Facebook page. Just check out our photos section. So I think I've given you basically a breakdown of a lot of what's going on. We've got our jury trial scheduled for January 14th, 15th, and 16th. The jury selection on January 6th. So if anybody could support us and make some noise and spread the word and do anything you can do to help our case and cause them to dismiss this case without going to trial, without having to face 20 years or 30 years of exposure time in prison. You know, is that what this case is going to end in? Some discredited jury that wants to convict somebody that's just living a peaceful life with children and a family, operating a legitimate constitutional church, operating just like secular businesses are. Do you want to send me to prison for 20 or 30 years? I don't know. Did I do something wrong to you? So think about it. That's what I'm facing in my life. I'm defending it. I'm not taking any pleas. We're defending this position. So if that's what it is for me, then I'm going to defend this position. I'm going to trial. So I know God is with me through all things in life. The Most High, He's always been with me. So I've got confidence in my Creator, my good Creator that has never failed me. So I wish everybody the best for your New Year's. And if anybody would like to come support us, like I said, January 14th, 15th, and 16th, Judge Ellen Burrs, case number 19, CF1228 here in Wisconsin. If anybody has any questions, you can you can call me, you can email, find out information online, or just respond to this video or this post. So we appreciate everybody. Blessed love, Rastafari love. Until the next time.